Coming up on Janice Edwards TV, Bay Area Vista, we are starting with a love story. If you love love, you will love the story of Elmer and Virginia, written by award-winning author John Odell. And then, ever thought about changing your life, just packing up and traveling the world? Well, our guests, Keisha and Eric Mitchell, and their 2 children, are doing just that. They are calling their adventure the Audacity to Be Free, and we'll give you a preview of what's in store for them. So that's all coming up next. Join us.
Janice Edwards, it's showtime. It's time to Janice Edwards, it's showtime. It's time to Janice Edwards, it's showtime. It's showtime. Your time to shine.
Welcome to Janice Edwards TV, Bay Area Vista. We are so glad that you are joining us today. And we're also thrilled about our first guest today. He is an award-winning author of Elmer and Virginia, a World War II romance in letters. He is also a broadcast legend, Emmy Award-winning. John Odell, it is wonderful to have you with us. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Janice. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. You know, I should also mention that you are Faculty Emeritus. Tell us a little bit about your background before we get into the story of Elmer and Virginia.
Oh, gee, I started when I was in grad school working for KPBS in San Diego as a master control switcher and a videotape person and staff announcer. And when I moved up to San Francisco, I got a job with KPIX, where I started out as graveyard videotape and then worked for Evening Magazine for half a year, and then went to Channel 5 News until '82 when I jumped ship and went over to KGO, and I spent 12 years at KGO and left to freelance and teach. We got a gig at City College of San Francisco, and after 5 years I was a full-time faculty member there, and I taught basically at City College from 1994 to 2006 when I retired, and the rest is history, I guess. Something like that.
Yes, continued history. So impressive. And that's right. We also have KPIX News in common in our backgrounds as well. So it's wonderful to have you here. And I loved your book, Elmer and Virginia. These are love letters between your parents who were besotted with each other and just so endearing. Talk to me about how many letters there were and how it went from these being letters in a shoebox, I believe, to becoming a book.
Yeah, there are more than 700 letters from my parents to each other, plus letters from my father to his parents and his parents to him. In total, then almost 1,000 letters. And so I guess I forget how long ago it was. I had a hip replacement and had nothing else to do, so I started reading these letters. And I thought, we got to make a book out of this because these people really. They were really good storytellers, really good writers, and madly in love. And so their exchanges are just filled with all kinds of emotions, positive and fears in the wars. But my father went overseas. He started out as a bank clerk after he graduated from high school in 1939 and ended up being a decorated fighter pilot in the Second World War. And my mother, who graduated from high school at the same time he did, went on to be the second woman editor of the Syracuse Daily Orange, the student newspaper, and then came back to Long Island where they grew up and worked for a newspaper there.
Such a great history. And you are the oldest in the family among the siblings. And one of the stories that I love that you shared is that you remember that your father would stay home from church when you and your mom would take you and your siblings, and then she'd come home and he'd just bend her back in a passionate kiss that all the kids thought was gross at the time, right? But was so endearing because he missed her during that time, and
right.
They were, yes.
Yeah, I was raised as a Catholic, and my father was a Methodist, and Sunday was his only day off. He worked 6 days a week. So he would sleep in while we went to Mass, And then he'd get up and start cooking breakfast, and he'd have breakfast ready for us when we got home from church. And that's when he'd grab her.
I love it. Well, you have a couple of excerpts you're going to share with us. So what is the first one that you're going to read?
The first one is when my mother, or Virginia, first went to Syracuse, and this is November of 1939. And she writes back about what, student life was like. This is Syracuse, New York, upstate New York, where the university is. She writes, Colgate weekend and the week before it was noisy but nice. They staged rip-roaring pep fests every night, and Saturday night after we'd won 7-0, 3 cheers, all the alumni who came back to get drunk and all of the students who stayed drunk for the occasion proceeded to wreck the city. One of the tricks for Colgate night is rent a hotel room and throw water, bottles, and other small or large objects down on the passersby. The streets around the hotels looked like they had been raining, and it hadn't, except for the liquids the merrymakers had let fly. Gee, what a mess. The Pep Fest were almost as riotous, too. They poured gasoline in the trolley tracks and set them on fire. Very pretty sight. The little kiddies also bounced, yes, I said bounced, cars, which were parked along the street, out into the middle of the road and did various other things to keep the cops in complete frustration. These things are slightly crazy practices, but a lot of fun to watch. Just have to see that you don't get killed or wounded.
Well, such a great writer. When the way that your mom, both of them wrote, you were just right there in the moment. And I think that's truly a lost art when we think about letter writing, especially these days via texting in terms of eloquence many times. And so after that, moving ahead, you have another excerpt from them too, I think.
This is a Valentine's letter. This is a couple of years later. We're in 1942, and they're now deeply in love. And my mother writes to my father, and he's home working in the bank at this time. Remember the letter I sent you last year? This again on Valentine's Day will be about the same, except now I'm even more sure you're wonderful. Angel, because of many things, because you don't get mad and yell, because you seldom even get mad. My angel, ever since that awful day when you were so sweet about everything. I don't know what that was about. Because you work so hard, not only in things any fellow would, his job, but also at schoolwork, where the results are so intangible. You're never bored. You're interested in subjects, and you can talk about subjects anyone wouldn't know the first thing about. I can't remember ever hearing you say anything unkind about anybody. You're not that way. Even if you don't like my shoes, honey, or most unorthodox trends in the way of clothes, this was a running conversation between them, I'm very satisfied with the way you look. Just for fun someday, I'd like to see you when you weren't neat, clean, and freshly brushed looking. This isn't a quarter of how I appreciate you. You like woods and streams and out-of-the-way places. You like Tchaikovsky and Thornhill, Dvorak and Dorsey. You like dancing, swimming, skating, everything. You like to read Sunday newspapers, see a New York show, sit quietly in some softly lit restaurant, and argue pleasantly over scotch and soda. Every time I see a beautiful sunset outlining Grouse Towers and the castle, those were buildings on Syracuse, I think of you and wish you could see it. Tonight the sky was deep blue, and the tree branches, silhouetted and accentuated with snow, seemed to be tangled with stars. They were never that near and bright. I wish you could see it with me.
Oh, so beautiful.
Just melts your heart, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It melts your heart. And you mentioned that we don't know exactly what the tiff was about before, but we know that before they became a couple, there was another suitor in the picture, and your mom had to decide it. It's so endearing, just even how open they were with each other with that. Now, also, as we know, your father was involved in World War II, very dangerous missions at that time. And I think you have something written there, both from him and then also from your mother around D-Day.
He's in the dogfight, and a dogfight is a term, aviation term for aerial combat, and it's called a dogfight because you're trying to get on the other airplane's tail so you can shoot him down. So we picked it up in the middle of this dogfight. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I see a ship coming at me from about 90 degrees, and there was a big black cross on his wing. He slid in astern of me, and I knew I was a gone duck if he stayed there. I was about to call a break when the Nazi that Robbie was chasing inadvertently saved my life. At this particular time, he decided that he had enough and dove for the deck. We went screaming after him, and in this way, I was able to shake the Hun off my tail. Robbie got the one he was after. We saw him bail out, but by the time we caught him, we were far below the scene of action, and to try to climb up into that mess would have been suicide, so we headed for home. Out of the mess, we shot down one Nazi and broke up an attack on the bombers, so we considered it a day's work done. The whole action didn't take more than a couple of minutes, but in that couple of minutes, I was really scared. When I got back, I asked the other fellows if they were scared too, thinking that maybe I was a coward or something. But it's a natural reaction. All of them were shaking in their boots. Incidentally, the guy who spun out finally got back with us. So now you know what combat really feels like.
And such courage. I think that's so brave. Nowadays, we know how to talk more about PTSD and what veterans endure. But during that time, the question that he had was such a natural one. Was it not courageous to feel fear? But it's very human. And I think that that's one of the things that's so wonderful about this book, especially now where unfortunately we are seeing so much war and the threat of even more war. It reminds us of the courage of what's been called the greatest generation, and also harkens to those courageous people who are still defending our country and our democracy these days, and in times that I'm sure your parents couldn't have imagined when we think about just what's on the political landscape.
Yeah. And my mother had asked my father to describe things to her. She wanted to be with him through his writing and feel the same emotions that he did. He successfully did that in that last paragraph. The last thing, you want me to read the last thing?
Yes. Let's hear that.
After D-Day, my mother was working for the paper and she hadn't done much on the day. Her editor came, pulled her aside and said, your father, your husband's over there, isn't he? Yes, she said. I'd like you to write a little something for the paper about how you feel on this day. And this is what she wrote. Not many hours have passed since the start of the Allied invasion of Europe, undoubtedly the greatest military operation of all time. The news quickened the pulse of the nation, put dread fear of the days to come in the hearts of thousands. I'm only one among those thousands. My husband is a fighter pilot based in England. The fear inside me is nothing new. I have almost become used to it, as it's been there since he began flying combat early this year. But as raids over Europe increased in number, grew in size, so grew my tense feeling, and yesterday marked some sort of a climax. Now holding their breath with me are the families of the invading land troops. What a pilot thinks of when he's up there in the blue is definitely not what the song indicates. What a pilot's wife thought of yesterday when the invasion was announced is much the same as when she has been thinking every day for months, only more so. You wonder, for instance, if the armorer for his Mustang fighter plane did a good job when he checked and loaded the guns, and you hope the crew chief continues to be eager, keeping the ship in perfect operating condition. Then you pray that both your pilot and whoever is flying his wing are on the ball today. It doesn't take long for things to happen when you're flying faster than 400 miles an hour. As I've wished so many times before, I wished I could be experiencing some of what he has been going through, even though I know that very likely I couldn't take much of it. But yesterday he probably went out on more than one mission. Maybe he was flying just above the armada of landing vessels, and then went in on the deck to pick out some shore batteries to bomb or a few Nazi airstrips to strafe. Instead of going on a bomber mission or a fighter sweep, he may have been one of the escorting fighters for a group of heavy bombers with a big target to knock out, or his outfit may have been used in an efficient use of combined operations with landing vessels and ground troops calling for protection or asking to have some annoying resistance bombed out. Whatever it was, I know he was cramped into the small, hot cockpit of his P-51, and part of the time he was wearing the very important but equally uncomfortable oxygen mask. He was a plenty tired pilot after yesterday's mission. He was tired from straining to spot enemy planes, from concentration on the flight, keeping his plane in tight formation, and tired after the careful calculation required if there was any bombing or strafing to be done. Despite the very personal interest I have in the invasion force, many other thoughts were in my mind yesterday. Thoughts for friends who were on it, but also for the thousands, strangers to me, who face dangers and death with them. I have great faith in the young men, only recently unimportant clerks, delivery boys, students, who are now making the world's history. Taken from ordinary jobs, they are now asked to do the heroic. They are doing just that, daily overcoming tremendous difficulties, making heartbreaking sacrifices, and treating it all as commonplace. So with the invasion started, my schedule will be the same. I wonder about him, worry about him, write to him, and praying for him victory and lasting peace. I am assured and comforted by such things as the tremendous roar of friendly bombers making huge shadows over neat neighborhood gardens, victory gardens.
Wow.
I tear up every time I read that. I mean,
Yes. So, yes, it's so evocative and beautiful and moving. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Such great writing and just captured it incredibly. Now, he came home, they were married, you were the first born in the family. Did they talk about the war, their letters, or any of this as you were growing up?
Not the letters. My father occasionally, in the first, would talk about the war because he had some of his pilot buddies coming over for drinks or something like that. So I'd hear stories that they would tell, but not too much. He got the Distinguished Flying Cross for shooting down 2 Germans. This is in August of 1944. And it's pretty clear, though he told my mother that the pilot had bailed out, but it was pretty clear that he had was killed instantly by my father's gunfire. And many years later, I remember him talking about that and expressing remorse. He said he was just a kid like me trying to get home when I killed him. So that's the kind of weight that these people carry with them.
Yes, and many times we don't understand. My father was a veteran of the Korean War, and I know that he never wanted to talk about it. And we understand the more we know from a distance, even we understand just the internal battles of those things. And that's incredible that your father had that sense and was able to share that, because a lot of times in order to be in combat, the mindset has to be so different because of the challenge.
Yeah. But they lived a happy life. They came back and he went to night school for 7 years to get his bachelor's degree, and he operated paint stores. He owned paint stores on Long Island for most of his career. And my mother, after all of us were off to college, she went back to college herself and got a master's degree and went back and taught English in the high school that she graduated from.
That is so amazing. Such a great story. And tell me about your siblings and how you all developed as well.
Well, I'm the oldest, and there were 4 of us, and there's just 2 of us left now, my brother and I. But we all graduated from college. Some of us got advanced degrees and led successful lives. And I've got I don't have kids myself, but I have lots of nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews. In fact, my first grandniece, who I held in my hands on the first day she was born, Ella, the redhead, just turned 30.
Oh my gosh.
Not 30. I'm sorry, not 30, 20. She just turned 20.
Oh, okay. But still, just the time warp of that. That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. I have nieces that just turned 30. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So such a legacy of love that Elmer and Virginia have with us. And as I mentioned, you've received awards. Congratulations for the book. What's been the response when you're in public doing a reading or people write to you about what this means to them?
Well, it's, these are first person accounts of history, and not just dry history, but history filled with love and fear and emotion and all the passions of life. So it's a book that's vibrant with all of these things, even though it deals with a variety of different subjects: college life and family and war and romance and getting married and dancing. My parents were great dancers. They loved to do the Lindy. And if you check out my website, I have a jukebox on the website where you can look up in the book. They reference a lot of songs that they were listening to, and you can go on the website and play that song.
Yes, it's so much fun to do that. And we have that information that we'll put up to make sure that everyone can reach out to you and enjoy both the music as well as the beautiful memories of Elmer and Virginia. So, John, thank you so much for bringing this lovely, lovely work to us. Continued success as more of the world continues to read these beautiful and poignant and evocative love letters. It's something to celebrate, the love that was there. And I know that they're no longer with us in this dimension, but they certainly live on through this with us.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you so much for having me on board and letting me read these things.
Yes. Well, it was a pleasure. And if you'd like to contact John, the information is there on our screens. If you've ever thought, one day I'll travel the world, one day I'll make a huge change in my life, but you're waiting for that day to come, well, you might be inspired by the story of the Mitchell family. Keisha Mitchell is a professional coach, president and CEO of Elevate Your Now. She's a wife and a mother, and I'm proud to say she's my friend. Keisha and her family have decided to begin their world adventure, traveling 7 countries in 1 year. They've packed up their California home and they are on their way. We're going to keep up with them as they travel around the world. But today we wanted to introduce you to the Mitchells and their adventure that they entitle The Audacity to Be Free.
Right now we are in the prep phase of leaving for our trip. Why am I talking?
Sorry, wait.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello everyone. I am super excited because we have a huge announcement to make as a family. But for those of you who don't know us yet, I guess we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Keisha Mitchell. I am the wife and mom here.
I'm Sela, the older sister.
I'm Shirai, the youngest of the group.
And I'm Eric, husband and dad.
So, for us as a family, this is a huge milestone year. We have so many things to celebrate and so many things coming up. First of all, I just turned 50, yes, and it is our 25th wedding anniversary. Also,
I will be turning 21 this year.
I'm graduating high school.
And I just retired from my job.
woo! So, with all of that, we have decided to actually move. But it's not just a move. We are doing something before we actually move. We're taking a 12-month, 7-country adventure, exploration, and trip. This is something that started really years and years ago because Eric and I always said one day we are going to live internationally. And
now's the time, right?
yep.
So a couple of years ago, we took a trip. We went to East Africa, we went to Tanzania, and just had an amazing time. And it really opened us up to the possibilities of living outside the United States. This is a dream that we've had for a long time, but that really put in perspective, we can really do this. We've looked at a lot of other bloggers and videographers, and they have been also the inspiration for our move. So we hope that you will come along with us on this journey.
Yes, every time we mention this to any of our family or really close friends, they are like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, how are you going to document? You know, how can we follow you? So we did decide to actually do a channel. And with that, you know, like Eric has said, it's more about, you know, letting people follow us on the journey, but then also letting you know kind of the ups and downs and the fun parts and what it takes to really do this. I'm super excited to be on this journey and to share with everyone kind of my behind the scenes as a wife, as a mother, traveling as a family through 7 different countries in 1 year, leaving the city that I was born in, the home that we've had for 20 years, for this amazing adventure. I'm excited, but don't get me wrong. My knees are definitely knocking. Like, it's scary to do this. We are moving into the unknown, even though this whole journey has been blessed before we've even left. So my behind the scenes will be me being a mom, a wife, and a business owner. I am a success coach. My business is Elevate Your Now, and you will see me navigate the waters of being a digital nomad. Figuring out how to serve my clients, how to do events, and how to incorporate everything we're doing into our day-to-day life.
What I'll be sharing with you guys is I'm really excited to take some different classes, maybe some dance classes, some cooking classes, see the art scene in all the different countries that we're going to be in. And one of my goals for the trip is to become fluent in Spanish. I have a couple years of school, but I haven't been able to get fluent, so I'm hoping that that immersion will really help me. And I am nervous about making new friends and meeting new people with different experiences, but I'm really excited, and I'm glad that I will have my family with me.
I would say what I'm looking forward to is meeting new people, new groups, especially people my age that I can hang out with, build relationships with, definitely, and see how they live out there, how they enjoy it, how it is being their age. I'm definitely also looking forward to catching some soccer matches and hopefully practicing with some clubs. That would be really cool, and I'd really enjoy that. And I'm also glad to be on this trip with my family, share some quality time, and I'm looking forward to that.
What would be important for me to share is really an understanding of the culture of the countries that we're going to, the people, definitely, as my children suggested, making new connections, making new friends, and then really showing you, if at all possible, kind of what it means to fit into, or how do we, you know, be authentic with ourselves.
Wow. Well, we will check in with the Mitchells on their Audacity to Be Free journey and give you updates from different parts of the world in upcoming shows. Before we go today, voting is a privilege. And that's our show. I'm Janice Edwards. Thanks for all that you do to make our Bay Area and our world a better place to be. We look forward to seeing you next time. Please join us again then.
Janice Edwards is showing.